Bitcoin. I mean, it feels like it's more than just, ones and zeros and prices going up and down. There's this, almost this pull towards a different kind of financial system, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
And right at the core of that, quietly keeping everything secure and running smoothly is something that I think a lot of people don't quite grasp. Bitcoin mining.
Yeah.
So you've brought your curiosity, you've brought some amazing sources, and we're going to dive deep today into what Bitcoin mining really means in, well, it's 2025 now, right?
Yeah.
We're going to get away from all those headlines, the ones that are like, it's dead, it's the future, all that stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to see what's really going on under the hood.
Yeah. I love that.
Why is this process, which is always in the news, still so active? And what are the real nuts and bolts that everyone should understand?
You've really hit the nail on the head. Bitcoin mining, it really is that constant heartbeat of the network. And your sources articulate this really well. It's the mechanism that updates that transaction ledger, the blockchain, and prevents basically what would be the digital equivalent of double spending, like using the same dollar twice.
Right.
And think about traditional banking, right?
Yeah.
You've got the central authority who holds all the power to update records.
They're in control.
Yeah. Bitcoin, it completely flips that. It distributes that power across this whole network of independent participants, the miners.
Okay, so this digital mining, how does it actually, how does it work? I mean, we say mining, but it's not like, pickaxes and digging for gold.
Right.
It's all happening in the world of computers and algorithms.
Absolutely.
So let's unpack this digital quest.
Okay, so at its core, Bitcoin mining is like this high-stakes race. You've got miners, and they're armed with these specialized computers called ASICs. And these ASICs are like hyper-efficient number crunchers. And they're constantly trying to guess a very specific, randomly generated number. And this number is like the key, it's the solution to this complex mathematical puzzle that the Bitcoin system creates for each new block of transactions.
Oh, okay.
And it might sound like they're just taking random shots in the dark.
Yeah.
But these ASICs are insanely powerful. They're doing trillions of calculations every second.
Wow.
And the faster their equipment can make these calculations, this is measured by something called the hash rate. Basically, it's like the speed of their digital dice rolls.
Okay.
The faster they can do it, the more guesses they can make. The more guesses they make, the higher their chances of finding that winning number.
So it really is like this global puzzle-solving competition. And whoever cracks the code first gets. What do they actually get?
So the miner who finds that magic number, they get to take a bunch of pending Bitcoin transactions and they package them into a new block.
Okay.
And this block gets linked to the previous block in the chain. That's where the blockchain comes from.
Right.
And this updates the record of who owns what Bitcoin for everyone on the entire network. And what's really fascinating is that to find that solution, it takes a lot of work, a lot of energy, a lot of processing power.
Yeah.
But once that solution is found and a miner says, here's the answer, it's actually pretty easy for the rest of the Bitcoin network to check that it's right.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, imagine putting together this really complicated puzzle.
Yeah.
It might take you hours and hours to do it right.
Yeah.
But anyone can just glance at it and see if all the pieces fit together.
They can instantly tell if it's done right.
Exactly.
Okay. So, and they're not doing this just out of the goodness of their hearts. There's a built-in incentive.
Absolutely. And this is the part that keeps the whole decentralized system going. When a miner successfully adds a block to the blockchain, they get a reward. It's a fixed amount of brand new Bitcoin. And as you know from your sources, there was a halving in April 2024. And now that reward is 3.125 BTC per block. But that's not all. They also get any transaction fees that were attached to the transactions within that block.
Oh, interesting.
So this reward, it's the backbone. It's why Bitcoin is secure and why people keep verifying those transactions.
It's like the engine.
It is.
So these halving events, it's basically where the reward gets cut in half. It seems like that's a really big deal in how Bitcoin was designed.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's this predictable reduction in how new Bitcoin is created. The next halving is actually coming up in 2028.
Okay.
And it'll drop the reward down to 1.5625 BTC. So this has major, major implications for the long-term economics of mining. As that reward keeps getting smaller, those transaction fees are going to become even more important for miners.
It shifts the balance.
Exactly. And it's a big focus as Bitcoin evolves.
So you were talking about ASICs before, these special mining computers. It sounds like the technology that's used to mine Bitcoin has changed a lot over time.
It really has. Your source does a great job of showing this evolution. Back in the very beginning, 2009, people could actually mine Bitcoin using just the regular CPUs in their home computers.
Really?
Yeah, that's how Satoshi Nakamoto did it.
Wow.
But then, as Bitcoin got more popular and the mining difficulty, that puzzle we were talking about, got harder, people needed more powerful computers.
So that's when GPUs came in, right? The ones used for gaming.
You got it. Around 2011, GPUs were so much better than CPUs for those specific calculations that Bitcoin mining needed. I mean, just one high-end GPU could have the power of like dozens of CPUs, so mining became way more efficient, and people stopped using CPUs.
And then was it after GPUs that FPGAs came along?
Exactly. FPGAs, or field programmable gate arrays, offered even more potential for speed, like 3 to 100 times faster than GPUs. But the catch was that they were really complicated and expensive to program.
Oh.
So even though they were faster in theory, not many people used them. Too difficult to set up.
So then it was the arrival of ASICs that changed everything, right?
Absolutely. ASICs, application-specific integrated circuits, came onto the scene around 2013. They're specifically designed for Bitcoin mining and nothing else. Unlike a CPU or GPU, an ASIC chip can't be used for anything else. It's hardwired to do one thing: mine Bitcoin. And now, in 2025, they're the standard. Trying to mine Bitcoin with just a regular PC or a gaming GPU at home is like trying to compete in a race with a bicycle.
You're going to get left in the dust.
Yeah. There were even early ASIC miners that were just little USB sticks, but those quickly became obsolete.
So for a while, it was this constant race to have the latest and greatest hardware. Is that still going on today?
You know, it's interesting. At first, ASIC development was all about power, power, power. New, faster miners were hitting the market like every few months. But things have calmed down a bit since around 2016. The technology has kind of hit a plateau. Now, the focus is more on making them energy efficient, getting more hashing power without using more electricity.
So less about brute force, more about finesse.
Exactly. And they're exploring new cooling methods, using different energy sources, even using artificial intelligence to optimize everything. It's a different kind of competition now.
Okay, so with all this specialized hardware and competition, it sounds like it would be really tough for someone to just start mining on their own. That's where mining pools come in, right?
You're absolutely right. In 2025, if you try to mine solo, even with top-notch hardware, you're at a huge disadvantage compared to these big mining operations.
Like David versus Goliath.
Yeah, pretty much. So these mining pools are like a team effort. They allow individual miners to combine their computing power, their hash rate.
Okay.
So when the pool, as a group, solves a block, that reward the Bitcoin, and the fees get split amongst everyone based on how much processing power they contributed.
So even though you only get a small slice of the pie each time, it's a lot more reliable than trying to do it all yourself.
Exactly. It's more consistent and predictable for smaller miners. Solo mining can be a real roller coaster. You might not find a block for months. And there are some really big mining pools operating globally now. And things have shifted geographically, especially since China banned Bitcoin mining back in 2021.
Right.
North America, particularly places like Texas with cheaper energy, has become a major hub for Bitcoin mining.
That makes sense. I mean, this all leads to the big question that's probably on everyone's mind, whether they're deep into crypto or just curious. Is Bitcoin mining actually profitable in 2025?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And like your source points out, the reality is it's a tough business, it's really competitive, and the margins are tight. Profitability really comes down to a few key things. The biggest one is electricity. ASICs are real energy hogs, and you've got to keep them cool too.
That takes even more power.
Yeah. Then you've got the efficiency of your hardware, how much hashing power you get for the amount of electricity you use. And of course, the price of Bitcoin itself makes a huge difference. So miners are constantly having to adapt, upgrading to newer, more efficient equipment, looking for the cheapest electricity they can find.
So it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Definitely not. It takes a lot of work to stay ahead of the game. And the margins are so slim for many miners, it takes a lot of financial know-how to make it work.
So it raises the bar for entry.
It really does.
Okay, and I imagine the whole mining difficulty thing we talked about earlier plays into this profitability puzzle as well, right?
Absolutely. The mining difficulty, it's like this amazing self-adjusting system built right into Bitcoin.
Okay.
As more miners join the network, which means more computing power, the harder it gets to find that solution to the puzzle.
Right.
And if miners leave the network, the difficulty goes down. It keeps the average time to find a new block at around 10 minutes, no matter how much total computing power is out there. So more miners means higher difficulty, which means you need even more powerful and efficient hardware to stay profitable.
So it's a constantly moving target.
It is.
Now, for someone listening who's thinking, okay, this sounds interesting, maybe I want to try mining Bitcoin. What would you say, based on the sources, are the basic steps to get started in 2025?
Well, the first thing, and your source really emphasizes this, is that it's not as simple as it used to be. It's a serious undertaking.
Yeah.
The very first step is to really crunch the numbers and figure out if it's even potentially profitable for you. There are Bitcoin mining calculators online that can help you with this.
Okay.
You have to factor in your electricity costs, the cost of the equipment, and what the price of Bitcoin is. Next, you need to actually get yourself a Bitcoin miner. And these days, that pretty much means investing in one of those specialized ASICs. You'll also need a secure Bitcoin wallet to store any Bitcoin you mine. And for most people, joining a mining pool is going to be the best way to get consistent rewards. Once you pick a pool, you download their mining software, connect it to the pool, and tell it where to send your Bitcoin. Then you're ready to start mining. But the bottom line is you need a decent amount of money up front for the hardware, and you really need to have access to cheap electricity if you want to make this work.
Mining at home with a regular computer is basically off the table, right?
Yeah, in 2025, it's just not realistic.
Okay. What about those other ways of mining that you hear about sometimes, like cloud mining or even using an app on your phone? Are those legitimate?
Your source talks about these, and the general advice is to be super cautious. Cloud mining sounds tempting because you're basically renting processing power from someone else, so you don't need to buy all the expensive equipment.
Yeah.
But the problem is the fees are often so high that you barely make any profit. And there are a lot of scams out there, unfortunately.
So buyer beware.
Definitely. As for mining on your phone, those apps do exist. But your phone's processing power is tiny compared to an ASIC. You'll end up with a dead battery and probably just a few Satoshis to show for it.
So not really worth it.
Not really. And then there's this thing called web mining or cryptojacking, which is a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good.
It's kind of shady. What happens is some websites will sneak code onto their pages that uses your computer's processing power to mine cryptocurrency without you knowing.
Wow, that's sneaky.
It is. And while technically they could use it to mine Bitcoin, it's not usually profitable because your CPU just isn't powerful enough.
Right.
It's more often used to mine other cryptocurrencies that are easier to mine with a CPU, like Monero. It's a big ethical issue because they're basically stealing your computer's resources, and it can slow your computer down and even cause damage.
Not cool.
Definitely not.
One of the big debates around Bitcoin mining has always been its impact on the environment. Our source mentions a push towards sustainability, but I'd love to hear more about what's happening in that area.
Yeah, that's a really important point, and it's something that's changing all the time. Your source highlights how more and more miners are looking for ways to use renewable energy to power their operations. We're seeing mining companies setting up shop in places where there's lots of hydroelectric power, solar power, even places where they can use natural gas that would otherwise just be wasted.
Oh, interesting.
And this is happening for a couple of reasons. For one, there's more awareness about the environmental impact, but it's also just good business. Renewable energy can be cheaper in some places.
So it's a win-win.
Exactly. So Bitcoin mining has had a reputation for using a lot of energy, but things are starting to shift in a more sustainable direction.
That's encouraging to hear. Finally, your source raises an interesting point, that sometimes, depending on the price of Bitcoin and the market, it might actually be better to just buy Bitcoin directly rather than mine it.
That's a really smart observation, and it shows how complex this market is. Whether it's more profitable to mine or to buy depends on a lot of things. The price of Bitcoin, the mining difficulty, your costs as a miner.
Right.
Sometimes all the money you spend on equipment and electricity might actually be more than what you'd pay to buy the same amount of Bitcoin on an exchange. It's a calculation that anyone thinking about mining really needs to do carefully.
Okay, so let's break all of this down for our listeners. What are the key takeaways from our deep dive into Bitcoin mining in 2025?
So first off, Bitcoin mining is very much alive and kicking.
It's not going anywhere.
Not at all. It's crucial for keeping the Bitcoin network secure and running smoothly.
Right.
And the second thing is, it's a whole different ballgame than it used to be. If you want to mine Bitcoin profitably, you need to be willing to invest serious money in hardware and find affordable sources of energy.
It's a whole industry now.
Absolutely. And the last takeaway is, even though all the technical details can seem complicated, once you get a handle on how mining works, it really helps you understand how this whole decentralized digital currency system operates.
And it makes you appreciate how ingenious it is. I mean, when you think about it, this system designed by Satoshi Nakamoto, it's like a self-regulating machine. It rewards people for keeping the network secure, and it encourages collaboration, even though there's competition. It's pretty amazing.
It really is. And it's important to recognize that there are ongoing discussions about its environmental impact. But the good news is there's also a lot of progress being made towards more sustainable practices.
Right, we are seeing a shift in the right direction.
And this brings us to a thought-provoking question for you, our listener. Now that you have a better understanding of how new Bitcoin is created and how the network stays healthy, what do you see as the biggest hurdles and the most exciting opportunities facing Bitcoin and its mining ecosystem in the future? This deep dive is just a starting point. There's so much more to explore and learn.
And we encourage you to do just that. Until next time, keep diving deep.